Good morning, everybody, or from whatever time zone you're joining us over here. Hope your week has started off well. So today we are talking about self-help books and self-help in general. And we're going to be studying a text which is an introduction to a wonderful self-help book. It's called the Sefer Tanya, the Tanya Sefer. It's authored by Reb Shlomo Zalman of Liadi, known as the Alter Rebbe or the first Chabad Rebbe. And we're thinking about him today because today is the 20th in the month of Kislev in the Jewish calendar. And this is part of the 2 days of celebration. The 19th and the 20th of Kislev is celebrating the release of the Alter Rebbe from prison, where he was imprisoned for all kinds of reasons, that he was being maligned for working against the Russian Empire. And he was finally miraculously liberated, which allowed him to continue to teach and do what he was doing as a Rebbe, as a leader of Jewish people. So the cycle of Tanya, learning it throughout the year, begins yesterday, and it's divided into a portion for every single day of the year, so you can finish it once a year. So that's the cycle. And today, actually, the section to be studied is the compiler's forward, the Alter Rebbe's forward introduction to his Tanya. And he calls himself a compiler because in the opening page, he says, actually, the first editions of his book, he didn't even put his name in there. He just said it's a Hakdamas Hamalaket, the introduction of the person who was gathering these teachings, a very humble way of saying, I'm just gathering teachings from earlier sages and earlier generations, nothing new of my own, which is obviously not true. I mean, meaning he was building himself off the teachings of previous generations and the history of great Jewish scholars and mystics. But of course, he was not just compiling it, but he was working it into a very comprehensive life system. So he wrote an introduction, and it really explains the idea of a self-help book. Because let's think about self-help books, okay? If you're somebody who is somewhat diligent and conscientious in life, there's no question about it, you have opened up a self-help book today. There are so many. Every single day, another one is coming out. And the truth is, self-help books are not new to the last decade or several decades, even though there's been a boom in self-help books. But throughout the history of humankind, there's been the genre of self-help books. So you can go as far back as Roman times, and one of the Roman emperors, Marcus Aurelius, I believe, he wrote a book called Meditations. It was small, different snippets that you could study and gain some help. Ever since then, throughout the medieval times and in ancient times, books were always written for self-help. Meaning, what's self-help? A person is looking for help in life. What are you looking for help for? Well, personally, you may be looking for help in your personal life. Maybe you're dealing with some emotional issues. Maybe you're dealing with anger, or maybe you're unhappy, or maybe you're depressed. Maybe you're feeling sluggish. You're not motivated. You're not kind. You're not organized. You're not time efficient. All the things that we want to work on in life to be able to improve and enhance our quality of life and our quality of work and our moods and our emotional dispositions. Maybe in your business life, you've pursued self-help because how to build a business. I mean, there are people that have done it bigger than you and better than you. In any area of life, in social life, the famous book that I think over 50 million copies have been sold, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And that Dale Carnegie, by the way, is somebody who tried many, many things and he was unsuccessful, which is why he came up with his system of how to win friends and influence people. And that was ultimately his success, that and other books of his, because it became so popular. So self-help books are all over. Now, to be sure, there's a lot of critique about self-help books because ultimately, how much does a self-help book really help you? Think about this. You're working on something and you've read through a book. Now, how much did you change? Did you change? And there's actually been studies being done where it's shown that self-help books really just get a repeat of customers. Those are buying others as well. And it's not necessarily clear how much the self-help books are actually helping people, which is issue number one. So it's playing with us. Issue number 2 is the idea. There's a study being done about the placebo effect. So maybe you're reading the self-help book and maybe you found that it's changed you a little bit. It's brightened your mood. It's given you a new way of thinking. It's given you a new way of doing things. The question is, was it the book that helped you, or just like the placebo idea where you're feeling like you've been helped because you've read this and really the answers were in you all the time and just this stimulated the answer within you? And then there's the other very important trap that a lot of people don't pay attention to. Because when we say self-help, we really mean, it's actually a very good expression, self-help. That means that at the end of the day, in your personal life especially, the only person that can truly help you is yourself. Okay? Now, maybe in your business or in other kinds of matters in life, others can provide support. In every area of life, people can provide support for you. But if you're looking to change, if you're looking to improve something within yourself, only you can help yourself. Because only you can work on it. It's your life, it's your experience, it's your soul. So you've got to. So when you read the book and you expect that overnight, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be a different person, it's not going to work that way. The book can stimulate ideas within you so you can work on them. So what we've forgotten about self-help books is the need for the self within the help, which is truly a very crucial matter that is making things not work as well as they should. So actually, I think one of the most recent, first classic modern self-help books was written by a person. His name was Samuel Smiles in 1850s. So there you go. It's a nice name to have. The book was called Self-Help. Today, we're going to study about the self-help book called the Tanya. Now, some of you may have heard of the Tanya, and the Tanya means many things to many different people. But the fact that I'm calling it a self-help book is not because I'm reading it that way, but because the Alter Rebbe, the author himself, called it a self-help book. We're going to be studying the introduction, and he's going to be describing what his goals are in authoring this book and why he feels it can be truly a self-help book as opposed to many others which may not work as well. So that's a very exciting introduction that I'm going to study the text with you today. Just a brief introduction about that. What's unique about the Alter Rebbe's self-help book is that whilst many other self-help books will often address what we'll call the symptoms of your life. So you're going through something. You're in a dark place. You're not happy. You're impatient. You're suffering from rage, from nervousness, from anxiety. You're disorganized. You're not able to find the motivation to get up on time, to be organized, to keep your calendar, to whatever it is. So let's take the issue, right? You're suffering from unhappiness, or you're suffering from rage, or you're melancholy. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's give you some motivational ideas. Let's give you a few studies. Let's give you a few tips, and hopefully that'll get you on your way. Now, it can and should work. I'm not sure for how long. Maybe for the day, maybe for a couple of hours, maybe for a little while, and then you also all of a sudden revert back to where you feel like you've always been. So what's the long-term effectiveness of this work? The Alter Rebbe's self-help book is very unique because it doesn't address you as the human and all of the issues that you're facing in a symptomatic way, saying, let's deal with your problems. It says, we're not going to deal with your problems just yet. Let's take a step back. And the book, the Tanya, provides this overarching, comprehensive, philosophical, theological, spiritual, psychological system that designs or that informs you of how you were created and where you come from and what is the anatomical structure of your psyche and what are the things that make you tick and what are the tools within you. And so it provides this background into understanding the inner workings of the human being from a psychological perspective, but it's rooted in the Jewish spiritual path, rooted in Kabbalah. And so by providing the depths of the inner workings of the human being and making you understand yourself better, then getting to the symptoms and figuring out what's wrong and why this is not going right is much easier. It's a bit like the long, shorter way, which we described in the class last week on Tuesday night. So a lot of the text is dedicated to more theoretical, general description of the outline of the human makeup. And once you have all that in place, once you understand yourself, know yourself, once you know yourself, you can start to put all the pieces together, which means it's not a book that's a quick fix. It's not going to turn your life around today, tomorrow, or the next day, but it is going to provide you with the ultimate tools to self-help. So let's get straight into the text. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here. I'm going to share the screen where we have the translation of the text, and we'll study it together. Let me just find it on my screen here. Here we go. Okay, I hope you can see that. Let me make sure it's on the screen there. There we go. Okay, follow along. If there's any questions, please put them in the comments, and I'll try to address them. So here we have being an epistle, a letter sent to the communities of our faithful. May the Almighty guard them. So I'm writing this, says the Alter Rebbe, to the communities of our faithful, those who are seekers, because the first step in life is to be a seeker. If you're a seeker, then you're looking to make changes, make improvements, and fulfill your best potential. If you're not in that place, well, that's another issue that we need to address. Now, just a time frame, this is being written in the 1890s. 1897 is when the Alter Rebbe's work actually came out. Now, what was the Alter Rebbe addressing in this letter? Because it was very common for people, students, Hasidim, followers, who were going through something and wanted to have some help and guidance and seek the Alter Rebbe's assistance. They would set up a private audience with the Rebbe. Maybe they would travel from a distant town and come in once a year or twice a year or once every couple of years, and they would have a time to sit down and share their heart, bare their heart with Alter Rebbe, and he would answer their questions. The Alter Rebbe said, I'm getting too busy. I don't have the time. There's so many people are seeking my help, and I really want to help them all and give them my attention. I'm just not able to, which is why he says, I'm going to write this book. And instead of coming to meet with me, you'll be able to have me in this book to help you. But there are all the trappings and the challenges of following a self-help book, which is why this is the issue that Alter Rebbe addresses in the letter here. Let's go through it. To you, O men, or in Hebrew, the Ishim, O people, do I call. Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, who seek the Lord, and may God hearken to you, both great and small, all the faithful in our land and those adjacent to it. May each in his place achieve peace and eternal life forever and ever. Amen. May this be his will. Amen. Our life should work out as rosy as that. Behold, it is known as a saying current among people, all are faithful, that listening to words of moral advice is not the same as seeing and reading them in books. If you're looking for assistance, you can either go to a therapist, go to a counselor, go to a mentor, go to the Rebbe, and you talk about it with them 4 eyes, or you can read an article they've published in the book. Now, normally, this is a bit of a twist on the expression. Hearing is not the same as seeing. Normally, it's because seeing is greater than hearing. For example, if I see something, it's true. You can't convince me out of it. But if I only hear something, I can believe it's true, but you could make arguments that would convince me out of it. So seeing is always greater than hearing. But here the Alter Rebbe is twisting around and saying hearing and seeing are different. Actually, hearing is greater than seeing. When you hear and connect with a living person, 4 eyes discussing your life, it has a much greater impact than seeing and reading what that person has published in an article. For the reader reads after his own manner and mind, and according to his mental grasp and comprehension at that particular time. What are the challenges that are present uniquely to reading the article versus seeing and speaking with the person? So the Alter Rebbe is going to present 3 different challenges. 3 challenges why he says, I'm going to be writing a book for you. Now you're going to have 3 arguments of why it's going to be insufficient vis-a-vis coming to see me in my office. So challenge number 1. Challenge number 1 is that it's what you're reading is based on your comprehension, how your mind and heart can really fathom that, can grasp it. Now, however, where is your mind at any given time, and how much can you truly understand, and how clear are you at any given moment? Hence, if his intelligence and mind are confused and wander about in darkness in God's service, he finds difficulty in seeing the beneficial light that is concealed in books, even though the light is pleasant to the eyes and brings a healing to the soul. We are always in a different place. Hopefully, as much as possible, we're in a place of clarity, a place of openness, a place of truly cerebral, rational thinking. We see something, we process it responsibly, correctly, and then we can internalize it. But not always there. In fact, very often we're not there because there's so many stresses and distractions, and our life is in a different place at all times. For example, you could take the same text, the same book, the same article. Last year when you read it, it said one thing to you. This year when you read it, it's saying something else to you. And next year when you read it, it's going to say something else to you again, which is the value, by the way, of studying Torah all the time, the weekly Torah portion every single week. You can argue, but I learned it last year, I learned it 2 years ago, I learned it in school. If someone makes that argument, it's a silly argument. Yeah, you learned it then, and it helped you, or it informed you then how you were. But today, I would hope, and I know, you're not the same person now than you are then. So it's telling you something differently. Now, when it comes to reading a self-help book, advice from a counselor, from a mentor, from a psychologist, how much can I truly understand? First of all, if I'm in a really dark place, if somebody's really in the rut, an addict, a depressed person, somebody's going through a major challenge, and you say to them, here, take this book, read it, you're going to be fine. Take the book. I'm totally clouded. My mind is blocked. My heart is blocked. I'm not able to think normally or rationally. I'm going to take, what value does the book have? And even if you're not in such a dark place, your mind can always play tricks with you, right? Never put too much faith in your mind. So even when you're reading it and think you're understanding it, when you're sitting in front of a therapist, right? What's the goal of a good therapist? People get afraid when you say therapist, and I tell people all the time to go see therapists. And let's talk about the therapist. What's the goal of the therapist? To give you all the answers? A therapist that starts to give you all the answers to your life is not a good therapist, because the answers don't come from them. The answers come from you. Self-help. You can answer in your life. They can't answer for you. But being in the presence of a good therapist is somebody who, in their presence and conversation with them and the way their words are articulated and their whole mood and their body language and the aura of their presence, it lifts you up. It opens you up. It brings you out of your dark rut. It brings you to a place that you're feeling more open and more clear and more hopeful about things. And so if a good therapist has successfully elevated you to a place where you can be real you can start to think and process what you're being told or what you know inside your heart of hearts, and you can help yourself much more. So here's the first challenge Alter Rebbe presents, that the reading of a book really falls short from actually being able to communicate with the author, with the doctor, with the mentor. That's challenge number one. Challenge number two. Apart from this, let me just see if anyone's making any comments here. Okay. Challenge number two. Apart from this, the books on piety, which stem from human intelligence, certainly have not the same appeal for all people, for not all intellects and minds are alike, and the intellect of one man is not affected and excited by what affects and excites the intellect of another. So even Dale Carnegie, or even Eckhart Tolle, or even anyone, I don't want to mention names because I'm not putting in plugs for any people over here, but anybody that's written a really good work, New York Times bestseller, it's sold millions of copies. What is the value of their wisdom? Their wisdom is a combination of their life's experiences and their life's thinkings and their research and their study and their, and they've put it together and they've made their book. Even if it's a very comprehensive study, even if it's really included in it a lot of what they've discovered in life, and even if they've been through really challenging times, much more than you have or ever will be through, so they've gone through much more than you have. At the end of the day, it's all funneled and filtered through their mind. And they're just, no matter how great they are or intelligent they are or experienced they are, they're just one person. And that's the limitation of them. It's not a bad thing. It's just a fact. So no matter how much they're trying to offer you, it's always going to be limited. Who really says that what you have to teach is relevant to me? It might be, I'm sure it's relevant to many people, but who says me? Maybe my disposition, my life, my experiences, my background, my pursuits don't fall into anything that you have included in your life coming from you. So that's the limitation of any work, any self-help book created by a human being. Now, the Alter Rebbe supports that with a very interesting concept from Torah, from the Talmud. Compare that with what our rabbis of blessed memory have said with reference to the blessing of the wise one in secrets upon beholding 600,000 Jews. So, you know of many blessings, right? When we eat food, we make a blessing on the water. I made a blessing before on mitzvot and Shabbat candles. We make a blessing. There's many, many blessings that we have. There's one blessing not a lot of people know about. It's called the blessing of Chacham Harazim, the wise one in secrets. The Talmud says, the Jewish law is, when you see a crowd of 600,000 people, now, it's not too often we see such crowds, but if you've ever seen 600,000 people, you should make a blessing. And the blessing is, blessed is God, wise one of secrets, meaning, the meaning behind it is a God who has unbelievably created 600,000 people, and not one single one of them looks alike in their facial features, bodily features, but more importantly, not one of them thinks alike. There is no human that looks alike to each other. There's no human that thinks like one to the other. How do we have so many different? Everyone is different in their thoughts, and it's all because a great God created every single one differently and individually. So there's 600,000, which is the number, the Jewish number when we talk about a mass. It's taken from the 600,000 males above the age of 20 who left Egypt among the nation of about 2 million people. So that's something to be admired and to be awed by. Now, that very blessing is telling us that no one person thinks like another. They don't look like or think like another, because their minds are dissimilar from one another and so on. As also Rabbi Moshe ben Nachmanides, the Ramban of blessed memory, explains the reason for this blessing in Milchamot, which is one of his books, elaborating on the commentary of the Sifri, the Medrash concerning Joshua, the successor of Moses, who is described as a man in whom there is spirit. Why did Moshe appoint Joshua? He didn't appoint his children. He didn't appoint anybody else. It was actually God's instruction to appoint Joshua. What was the most praiseworthy trait of Joshua was he was a man of spirit. Now, what does that mean? So you could say, simple meaning, he had a good spirit, he had a good soul, he was an inspiring person, he was a wise person. It is all that, but it's more. The Talmud explains, the Medrash explains, what does it mean to be a man of spirit, who can meet the spirit of each and every one, and so on. He knew how to identify and reciprocate to every single person's spirit, individuality, their own personal mind, their own thinking, their own character, their own personality. That's what made Joshua a great leader. Joshua is unique, right? He can actually talk the language and identify with the journey and the existential issues any individual was going through. But that's Joshua. Most people, even most great leaders and rabbis and sages and scholars, are not like that. There is a story in the Talmud of one of the Talmudic sages who once passed by two other sages, and he says, I want to make this blessing over you guys right now. Why? Because he identified that those two were also like Joshua, meaning there are unique people that truly are able to include within them the millions, the myriads of individualities of others. They are a true leader. But the average person, 99.9% of people, are not like that. They are of their one unique mind and persona and identity. And so no matter how wise they are, not necessarily will they ever be able to connect with you. So far we've presented two challenges of reading a self-help book. Challenge number one is the challenge of the reader. Who says the reader is going to be in the right frame of mind, with the right tools, with the right comprehension, the right wisdom to be able to understand what they're reading? Challenge number two is the challenge of the author. As great of an author as you are, can you really say that my book should be read by everyone in the world and can help everybody? That you can never say that. And now challenge number three. That challenge number two was about books that were written by humans who are limited to the human experience, which meaning having their own persona. What about books written based on Torah? Now here we have the belief that Torah is a true text, and Torah is a text for everybody. And Torah has within it teachings for everybody, because it's not man-made, but it's God-made. And if it's God-made, the creator of all the individuals in this world, then the Torah text, of course, can speak to everybody. So a book of Torah should not have that limitation of the book of humans. A book of Torah should be able to speak to everybody. But this too, says the Alter Rebbe, is also a challenge. Why? Even the books on piety, whose basis is in the peaks of holiness, the midrashim of our sages of blessed memory, through whom the Spirit of God speaks and His word is on their tongue, those prophets, those who wrote with divine foresight, and literally they were transmitting the wisdom of Torah, which is the wisdom of God. That too is a challenge. Although the Torah and the Holy One, blessed be He, are one and the same, and now the Torah is a direct result of God and God's wisdom, and all the 600,000 general souls of Israel with their individual offshoots down to the spark in the most worthless and least estimable member of our people, the children of Israel, are thus bound up with the Torah, and the Torah binds them to the Holy One, blessed be He, as is known from the Holy Zohar. Okay, so the Zohar says, Tlas Kishrin, there are three bonds that are connected together intimately, like one: God, the Torah, and the people. So by connecting with Torah, and the Torah is intrinsically connected to us, then we connect to God as well. And the Torah has space within it, within its wisdom, including all 600,000 general souls. Again, that same number, 600,000, is Kabbalistically a description of all of humanity, because we believe that although there are billions and billions and billions of souls, I mean, how many people have existed throughout the history of the world? I don't know, a lot. They all come from 600,000 sets of souls. God created 600,000 sets of souls, and then each one of those sets broke out into like sparks and offshoots. And every single one of us are an individual spark that belong to one of these collective 600,000 souls. So actually, that explains, by the way, why some people, you'll find yourself getting along better with certain people, but not with other people. Now, there's many reasons for that: common interests, similarities, if they're respectful, if they're nice to you. Okay. But another one of the reasons, more spiritually, is because it's possible certain people belong to the same subset of soul that you belong to, where someone else may belong to another general soul, and therefore their whole design and style is different than you, which means you may not see eye to eye on things. It's not a reason not to get along with people and not a reason not to respect people, but it shows that why there may be not as much of an easy connection. So if this is the case, then every single one of us has an intrinsic connection where we are part of the Torah text, which comes from God's wisdom. So a Torah book should always speak to every single one of us. It shouldn't have the challenges that a typical man-made self-help book has. The Rebbe says, no, it still has a challenge. Why? This bond pertains only in a general way to the community of Israel as a whole. As for the individual, although the Torah was given to be interpreted in general and in particular down to the minutest detail, to apply to each individual soul of Israel, which is rooted in it, so that these books pertain to every person. Nevertheless, not every person is privileged to recognize his individual place in the Torah. So he says the Torah provides general framework of teachings, general framework of principles and ideas that indeed pertain and are relevant to all of humanity. No man-made self-help book can say that all of humanity can learn from my book. I mean, I hope everyone who authors such a book has that humility to recognize that. But the Torah, we say, this text and the way it's interpreted by the sages, every human being in the world can learn from it. However, only in a very general way. General themes and principles of life we can deduce from the Torah. But that's not sufficient for me. For me, I need to know how the Torah is addressing my issue, my personal dilemma, my challenge, my question, my doubt, in a very specific way. Taking the Torah text at large, it's extremely difficult to extrapolate that message from me. We can extrapolate the message for us, for our family, for our community, for our times, but I want my answers. That's very difficult. And now the Rebbe proves this even from not self-help and psychology, but even from halacha, even from law. Here's an interesting comparison. The further difficulty is the complexity of Torah interpretation. Even in the case of the laws governing things prohibited and permitted, which have been revealed to us and to our children, we find and witness differences of opinion among Tanaim and Amoraim from one extreme to the other. Right? You ask a question, what's the law? What's the law about how to pray, what to eat, where to go on Shabbat, on the what's the law? You open up a Talmud, and you'll see Shammai rules like this, Hillel rules like this, Rabbi Yochanan like this, Reish Lakish like this, Rav like this, Shmuel like this. There's a myriad of opinions. All right, not a myriad, but there's many opinions. There's no one law, universal, that every rabbi agreed with. I mean, very rare. And this is the lesson for you. So if you're looking for a halacha, you can't really extrapolate the law for me from the Torah. Then how much more so if I'm looking for a life lesson of self-help, I cannot address the lesson for me from the Torah. Now, yet these as well, and these are the words of a living Torah. We have a principle that every single opinion in the Torah is true. Shammai, who said it's forbidden, true. Hillel said it's permitted, true. You're both right. Could you imagine that? One person says you're not allowed, one person says you are allowed. So today you'd think one's right, one's wrong, then I want to listen to this one, or I trust that one. They're both right, says the Talmud. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. They're both expressing the word of the living God. And it's written in the plural, Elokim chayim. The plural is used as a reference to the source of life for the souls of Israel, which then were divided into three categories: right, left, and center, namely kindness, chesed, might, gevurah, and so on. So that the souls whose root originates in the category of kindness are likewise inclined towards kindness in the leniency of their decisions, and so forth, as is known. Why is it that Shammai often ruled stringently about things and Hillel often ruled leniently about things? So again, remember, this ruling is coming from Shammai, and even though Shammai was not just a clever scholar, but he was a man of God, and he knew how to filter the Torah, the true Torah text, the true intention of God. However, he filtered it through his own mind, through his own soul. Shammai's soul was very different than Hillel's soul. Everyone's got a different kind of soul, but there are three main differences. All souls are rooted in the Sfirot, in the divine spheres, the divine projections and reflections of God. And God's light, it gets divided into three kavim, three lines: right, left, and center. If you're familiar with the structure of the Sfirot, Chachma being on the right, Bina on the left, Dat in the middle, then the emotions, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet. What are these three lines? The right kav, the right line, is dominated by Chesed, by the flow and energy of kindness. The left line is dominated by the flow and energy of Gevurah, of discipline and restraint and strength. And the middle kav, the middle line, is dominated by the flow of compassion or of truth. Sometimes we say that because it includes the right and the left coming together in a very colorful way that creates the beauty of truth. Right? The truth is somewhere including everything into it. So your soul comes from one of these, meaning you have particular source in the spiritual realms where your soul comes from, but also from one of these kavim. If you're naturally a more gracious, kind, selfless, outgoing, social person, you probably come from the right kav, the kav of chesed. If you're more of a recluse, if you're somebody who's a little more either of a more aggressive or tougher personality, or someone who's a little more to yourself and less of a sociable person and a little bit of a hard, rough edge, you may come from the right kav, from Gevurah, or you may come from the middle. So even in halacha, nobody can say, turn to the Torah and you have your answer. You have the answer of Shammai, and Shammai is reflecting his kind of soul. You have the answer of Hillel. Hillel is reflecting his kind of soul. And so too every other one of the great scholars and sages. All the more a menorah means in the case of those things which are hidden yet revealed only to the Lord, one God. These being the awe and love that are in the mind and hearts of each and every one according to his capacity, according to his heart's estimation, as explained in the Holy Zohar on the verse, her husband is known at the gates. If this is true about Jewish law, how much more so is it true about addressing life and your persona and the inner workings of your soul, your mind, your heart, your emotions, your moods, because that's even deeper and more nuanced. And to extrapolate that directly from the Torah is extremely difficult. And he brings a famous explanation from the Zohar. The Zohar comments on the verse that we sing every Friday night in our homes. The verse from Mishlei, where we're talking to our wives, our spouses, our loved ones. The song of Eshet Chayil Miimtza, and there's a verse that says Noda Basharim Bala, which means she knows her husband at the gates, and that's a compliment about the woman. The whole song is complimentary about the women, about the wives, who know exactly the needs of their family, etc. But the expression Noda Basharim Baila, she knows her husband at the gate. So spiritually, the Zohar explains, husband refers to God, right? We are the kind of anthropomorphic female, the wife, the spouse in this relationship, and God is the husband. And we know the husband, we know God basha'arim, at the gates. What does it mean to know God at the gates? So the Hebrew word for gates, sha'arim, is also the word sha'ar, and sha'ar, shi'ur, means a measurement. Meaning we all have our exact measurement. We have the way our mind works, the way our heart works. Our measurements are different than someone else's measurements. And we can only connect to God through our own measurements. What's right for them may not be right for me. And also the other word it comes from is hashara. Hashara means an estimation. Can I truly ever know the real truth of God? Nobody can. No great sage ever in history ever truly know the one and only real truth of God. Everybody did an estimation. Now, of course, a great sage's estimation is different than my estimation. My estimation is one of a layperson. But a great spiritual, the prophet, the sage, have the estimation as it's empowered by a spiritual sense and intuition of the real word of God. But it's only an estimation. Proof of that is because Shammai intuited one way, and Hillel another way, right? So now we've presented the dilemma. That's the end of the dilemma. Says the Alter Rebbe, there are three reasons why a book is not going to help you. Number one, because of you. You're not going to be able to read it properly. Number two, a man-made book can never truly help everybody. Number three, even a Torah book can never truly help everybody, as we've explained. So, what value is there in me presenting this book of Tanya, this self-help book for you? How does it replace equally you being able to come and speak with me eye to eye? So here's the Alter Rebbe's answer. He says, I speak, however, of those who know me well. Each and every one of our faithful who lives in our country and in lands adjacent to it, with whom words of affection have been frequently exchanged, and have revealed to me all the secrets of their heart and mind in the service of God, which is dependent on the heart. I'm not just writing a book that I've thought about, late at night in my bedroom. I'm writing a book that is composed of hundreds, thousands of issues, of dilemmas, of questions that I have personally received from you, from the people. And I've been involved in so many lives. And I've gained that wisdom, that collective wisdom of the masses. And I've been able to identify and understand the so many different kinds of people and issues and challenges in life. And I'm bringing this all together into my book. And he says, and you have to have a spiritual faith about this also, because he says, which means I'm speaking to those who I know intimately. You think, I don't know you, I do know you. Now, it could simply mean those that the Alter has met in person. Those that he met in person, he knows them, and if he can write a book for them. But a spiritual teaching, an understanding of this says it can refer to every human being. Because remember, we said that there are few and far between, but there are some individuals that have the collective wisdom and persona and piety of 600,000 people, like Joshua, like the two sages in the Talmud. And about those individuals, you can make the blessing of Chacham Harazim, which is a blessing for 600,000 people, because there are some people, in the Zohar, it's known, it's called a neshama klalit. I have a soul, which is my soul, belongs to me. You have a soul, which is your soul. But there are some people, not many, who have a soul that's called a general soul, not a specific particular soul. It's a soul that is all-inclusive, a soul that is inclusive of all the souls in the generation. A great tzaddik, a great rabbi, a great mystic may have one of those souls. And if he has one of those souls, then truly the soul of every person in that generation is connected with their soul. There's a famous story when one day the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidut, one day he woke up very excited, earlier than usual. He ran to the mikveh, he came to the synagogue, and he was in a mood like never before, elated, happy, enthusiastic. The way he prayed was different than the way he prayed any other day. And the Chassidim, the followers, the students sitting there were like a little intrigued. What's today? I mean, we don't know of any simcha. He didn't have a baby. I mean, there's no bar mitzvah. There's no wedding. Why is he so excited today? And after davening and after a l'chaim and after a small teaching, the Baal Shem Tov said, l'chaim, I want to make a toast. And the toast is that today, a new soul was born in the world. A new soul came down to the world. And for that, we have to drink l'chaim, because this soul is going to be of a great help and assistance and contribution to all people. Meaning, most souls that come into this world are not new souls. My soul is not new and your soul is not new. They're souls that have been reincarnated many, many times. It may have gone through many lifetimes before it came to us. It doesn't make it damaged. It doesn't make it used goods. It's for you, it's new, meaning it's your soul, it's your life, but it's not new. It's been around. It's been around doing all kinds of wonderful, positive things, hopefully throughout the ages, sometimes not entirely fulfilling its mission. So now it's in your lifetime to try to fix that. There are some souls that are new. Occasionally, a new soul comes down. When a new soul comes down to this world, it has an enormous spiritual power and potency that no other individual old soul can have. The Alter Rebbe was born that day. And the Baal Shem Tov, without even being there, they lived in somewhere very far away, but he felt the energy of a new soul that came down to this world. So this is a spiritual faith that we have based on what this Alter Rebbe is writing. So he says, may my word percolate to them, and my tongue be as the pen of the scribe in these booklets that are entitled Selected Discourses, which have been selected from books and teachers, heavenly saints whose souls are in Eden and who are now renowned among us. He says, I've studied from the Rambam, from Maimonides, from the Maharal, from other great mystics, from the Baal Shem Tov, from the Maggid, from so many of our great sages of history. The subjects of some of these discourses are hinted to the wise in the sacred epistles of our teachers in the Holy Land, may be built and established speedily in our days. Amen. Some of them I have heard from their saintly mouth when they were here with us. And all of them are responsive to many questions which all our faithful in our country have constantly asked, seeking advice, each according to his station, so as to receive moral guidance in the service of God, since time no longer permits of replying to everyone individually and in detail on his particular problem. Alter Rebbe says, this you're going to have to trust me. You trust me that A, I've included in it the gamut of life's possible experiences. B, it's not just built on my wisdom, but I've collected it from the cumulative wisdom of ancient sages and mystics throughout the ages. And C, I have a new soul, and I have a neshama klalit, I have a general soul. Somehow, whether you feel it or not, your soul is bound to mine. And I can intuit, I can feel, I can identify with your particular issue, even never having met you or spoken with you. And so when I can draw down this wisdom into the book can truly address your particular need. But what about the question of the challenge of the reader? When you're a reader, not always can you read something that in a way that should be comprehensible to you, in a way that can truly apply to you. You have the challenges of your own mind as you're absorbing this information. Maybe you're not in a place where you can be helped. You can't find the answers in the text. So to address this, the Alter Rebbe says, furthermore, forgetfulness is common. I have therefore recorded all the replies to all the questions to be preserved as a signpost to serve as a visual reminder for each and every person, so that he will no longer press for admission for private conference with me. For this responsa, he will find peace for his soul and true counsel in every matter that he finds difficult in the service of God. His heart will thus be firmly secured in the Lord who completes everything for us. So that addresses, my apologies, that addresses why I'm writing this down. And I'm printing it into a book. You know, they used to say the spoken word this is before recording, before YouTube, before Facebook days. So the spoken word is good for those that are present. Back in the day, that's how it was. The word printed on a piece of paper can be sent out to somebody much further away. And the word printed in a book is for generations. Today it's the other way around. The word printed in a book, books can go out of print. It's not for generations, but something on YouTube, on Facebook is forever. So things have changed. But that's why the Alter Rebbe says, I'm writing a book. What about if you're going to argue that you, the reader, won't always be able to extrapolate the lesson for you? As for him whose mind falls short in the understanding of the counsel given in these contrasim, in these booklets, let him discuss his problem with the foremost scholars of his town, and they will elucidate it for him. Here, the Alter Rebbe builds an important structure in society, and it really comes from the Mishnah. The Mishnah teaching says, Aseh lecha rav, make a rav, a rabbi for yourself, appoint a rabbi for yourself. It doesn't only mean appoint a rabbi to answer your halachic questions. Is this kosher or not? Can I do this or not? Appoint a rabbi. It means that, but it means much more. Appoint a rabbi, or appoint a spiritual master, or appoint a mashpia, appoint an influencer, appoint a mentor to guide you through life. Not just through law, but through life. How much of that system was truly inculcated into Jewish society historically is not so clear, but here the Alter Rebbe is trying to revive it and trying to really crystallize it and say as follows: every community has to have masters, not just rabbinic leaders who are addressing Jewish law, but rabbinic masters, spiritual leaders who are able to guide people through their journeys in life and help address their needs, their personality needs, and all their challenges. And this book will be the tool. But if you need help understanding this, you got to appoint for yourself and turn to that communal leader. Now, that's a lesson for the reader. You need to seek help from a mentor. You need to have a mentor. And by the way, it's very important to understand what a mentor is. A mentor is not somebody who once a year you call this guy up and you say, hey, I need some help. Or I get often a call, maybe you can help me with the following issue. Listen, I'd love to help you, and I try to help them. But at the end of the day, I don't even know you. We haven't been in touch with each other. I know nothing about your life. You haven't opened up and shared with me. And if you don't do that, I'm very limited how much I can help you, because I can, analyze the data you're informing me in this 20-minute phone call, but I don't really know you. If you want to seek someone's help, you need to have a true connection with a mashpia, with a mentor, that you share your life with them. And so they're a part of your life's journey. And you trust they're the right person who truly cares about you, but can also understand you, and so can help you along that journey. The importance of truly having an open book relationship with a spiritual mentor. Now the Alter Rebbe says, and I want to say something now to all those mentors. Listen carefully. And I beg of them not to lay their hand on their mouth to conduct themselves with false meekness and humility, God forbid. If someone comes to you with a question, with a dilemma, what could be a common answer? A person may say, I don't know. It's too difficult for me. I'm sorry I can't answer your question. I don't have time for you. And the Alter Rebbe calls it false meekness and humility. What do you mean you don't know? You are the esteemed mentor of the community. You are deserving of that. You have been learning and studying and experiencing and working on yourself a whole life. You have the capacity to help. And if you have the capacity to help, you must help. You must be available to the people. It is known what bitter punishment is his who withholds food, i.e. knowledge, and the greatness of the reward is the opposite case. The pasuk says, there's a verse in Mishlei that says, Manea bar, one who prevents food from somebody else, right? Someone needs food, you have food, but you close your hands, you don't give them. There's a terrible curse for you. The Gemara says it's not only about when you close your hands from giving charity and food, when somebody needs you and you have what to give, but it's also spiritual food, meaning knowledge. If someone seeks knowledge, I have a question in the Torah, and you don't impart them the knowledge that you have and you can give them, terrible curses come upon you as well. The Alter Rebbe said this is the same thing over here. I want you to be available to help people in their life's journeys and interpret for them and study with them the book of the Tanya. And how much more so the other way around, if you are available to help them, the amazing blessings that are coming your way. From the rabbinic teaching relating to the scriptural text, the Lord lightens up the eyes for them both. For God will cause his face to shine upon them with the light of the countenance of the King, the source of life. May the giver of life to the living make us worthy to live and see the days when no longer shall one man instruct the other, for all shall know me, For the world should be full of the knowledge of God. And now the Alter Rebbe concludes and he says that we're striving towards the end of days. And the end of days is the coming of Mashiach. And as Maimonides writes, and it's brought down in the prophets, what is this the most significant addition or achievement for the era of Mashiach, of redemption? Of course, there'll be world peace. Of course, there'll be no more pain, no more hunger, no more jealousy, no more starvation, no more illness, no more war. Of course, of course. But more importantly, those are just the introductions to what we're truly going to experience. The prophet says, the world will be filled with knowledge of God like the sea covers the seabed. In other words, truth will be revealed. We'll know, we'll see, we'll understand God, God's Torah, and the truth of all existence. Nowadays, it's a mystery. Nowadays, we are walking in darkness. We are. Every single one of us is walking in some kind of darkness. We're looking for the answers. We're searching for solutions. We're working on issues. We're facing a dilemma. We don't know what's the right thing to do. Last week, I got a phone call from somebody. Such a difficult problem he's having in life. And there's one option, A, option B, option C. I have no idea what to do. Who can answer such a question? We're walking in darkness. All the time we have these crossroads. The light is there, but it's hidden. It's being veiled. And by working on refining our life and our world, we're slowly peeling away at those layers which are covering the truth. And one day, the end of days, Alter Rebbe says, no one will have to instruct the other anymore. One day there won't be teachers and students like there is today. Because the teacher is a little more enlightened. He sees more, he's known more. The student is more in the darkness, so he can help him. But one day we'll all be in the same environment of light. We won't be teaching one another. We'll just be helping and studying together with one another and sharing experiences with one another. But we will all see the truth the way it is in general, but the truth for our own personal life as well. And Alter Rebbe concludes, for the world should be full of the knowledge of God. Amen. May this be his will. So, friends, let's conclude. Let's summarize. And there's a little bit one little section of the text at the end I didn't read out together with you. That's a very important part of the text, also not related to the whole introduction, but Alter Rebbe is saying more of a technical matter, and that is he's echoing the words of the printers and certain letters that were written previously in the Tanya. And the point was that whenever you're printing something, there's always a chance of two things. There's a chance that it could be corrupted, right? Someone else can copy it and copy and paste, but put in mistakes, whether deliberately or not deliberately. That's one chance of a text being corrupted. Problem number two is from a parnasa perspective, from making a livelihood from a book. If you don't have a copyright right on the book, then doesn't make it worth it to print. You have to be able to afford to print something, so it gives us respect to those who are putting out books, music, whatever. The Alter Rebbe says there's been a law put in place, an edict, that for the next 5 years, no one has permission to print it. In other words, I maintain the sole exclusive rights for the next 5 years. This way, A, we can actually pay our printers and make the investment worth it. And B, we can ensure that for 5 years, valid, legitimate copies are going to be disseminated throughout society. And so hopefully in the future, no mistakes will creep into this book. But the summary of this introduction, with the ultimate humility, the Alter Rebbe says, I'm here to help you. And I feel I have the answers. Not because of my own personal greatness, but because of the way I've heard from and connected with so many of you. And number two, I've been endowed with a special soul. And my soul gets it. My soul, it's a gift from God, but I get it. I understand every single personal issue and challenge that you may be having. I'm putting it into a book. Right? There's a story that when Alter Rebbe made this book, he sent a messenger to go to a few rabbis to give what's called a haskama, an approbation for the book. And one of the people he went to was known as Reb Zusha from Anipoli. He was a great colleague of the Alter Rebbe, also a great tzaddik. And Reb Zusha opened up the book and he was leafing through the book, and he was so ecstatic and excited about it, and he said, "Wow, azah größer Eibishter, azah kleine Bichel." Such a large God in such a small book. How did he do that? But he did that. And so we have to be grateful that we have the Tanya. And some of you have explored the Tanya, studied it, some not yet. It has helped many. It is a pathway. It's a comprehensive system of life, of understanding you and what your goals should be in life, and how to achieve those goals, and how to work through your battles, and how to work through your difficulties and your challenges. It's not going to change in one day or in 1 year. It's going to be a lifetime. I think it's a lifetime's manual. And a lot of the change that Alter Rebbe talks about is not necessarily you're able to do complete transformation of self. If you're given a certain challenge, a certain difficulty, you may never be able to completely transform it. But that's the way God created you. But at least to have the tools to know how to control it, how to master it, how to ensure it doesn't get to you, and how to ensure you can be the master of your life. So that's the introduction. And I hope you'll find opportunity throughout this year to study through the book of the Tanya and figure out how it's not just reading a text, but it's how it's truly speaking to you. And if you need help, you turn to a mentor. There's plenty of good books and editions online and in print of many commentaries that have been written. Work with those, but also work with somebody, with a person who A, has mastered the text, but B, has mastered you. They know you, they can help you, and you connect with a mentor. And this way you can truly find the light in your darkness. You can climb out of your rut. Your eyes, your heart, your mind can be opened up to seeing the true you, who you really can be. You know, they say there's three kinds of people. One kind of person, the lowest kind of person, sees you for how you seem. A higher kind of person sees you for who you are. And the highest kind of person sees you for who you can be. I heard that from Rabbi Sachs. So find somebody who can see you for who you can be. And good luck. And we're in it together. L'chaim, everybody. Thank you for joining, and God bless you.